Today we are looking at capital raises. You have a little scoop for us here, David, being the journalist, the top journalist that you are in your field. And from what I understand, many companies are gearing up for capital raises. What insight can you give us? Do you know? Can you tell us who and what will this mean for investors?
Sure. So basically, what's happening is that a lot of companies are positioning themselves to raise additional capital as the next year progresses or within the coming periods. And it's either to raise capital to do a particular event or it's to be used to settle a transaction. So, what do I mean by that? So, let's look at last year with Tropical Battery. Not even last year, actually this year to be correct. So Tropical Battery would have said that they were actually planning to issue about 60 million shares to some of the former owners of Rose Batteries as part consideration payment for the acquisition of Rose Batteries. So they're planning to raise capital to pay down the debt, so they're delevered, but they also plan to, they've got approval from the shareholders to issue shares to some of the former owners of Rose to settle the transaction. So that's just one example, but what we would have been seeing in the last couple of months is companies adjusting their authorized share capital limits. So that puts into perspective, right? So main event issued share capital was 300 and but it's 320 million, and they're at 301 million in issued shares. What does that mean? So if you have 301 million in issued shares and your authorized share capital is 320, it means you cannot issue more than 320 million shares at all. So as a result, they would have asked their shareholders back in July, and they got approval to raise the authorized share capital limit from 320 million ordinary shares to an unlimited amount, meaning that the company can now issue as many shares they need to or desire to, also considering the confines of the junior market share capital limit. We would have seen Productive Business Solutions, PBS, got approval from its shareholders back in June for the issuance of up to 40 million preference shares at 8.25%. We would have seen Innovative Energy Group, the former Siboney Group Limited, actually put out its annual report last week. And one of the resolution items for the AGM to occur in January is for the shareholders to approve the issuance of 850 million shares for the acquisition of Innovative Energy IEC SPEI DBA Limited. That's the operating company that has been operated for a decade at this point by Nigel Davey and co. So these are just some of the recent examples, and we'd have also seen General Accident, given some indicative signal that they're potentially planning to do an acquisition. Why? They pushed back their AGM for about 2 months, and about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they put a new AGM agenda where they're planning to issue, or I should say, increase their issued capital by up to 300 million shares. They're also asking shareholders, to approve the issuance of preference shares, asking shareholders to also increase the board size. So all of these things are telling me that, hey, things are coming for General Accident, and you're just seeing all these companies that are making these preparatory moves. And as I pointed out, you don't necessarily have to just come to the JSC as a, hey, I want to raise the capital to complete this particular event. You can issue shares as consideration for a transaction. So let me give you an example. 2020, Epley Care Property Fund, but the Value Fund in particular, would have issued shares to Separad to acquire a property that Separad owned. And Separad didn't want to retain the shares. So what they did was Separad actually had a dividend, whereby if you own more than 20,000 shares of Separad, part of your dividend payment was to be paid in Epley Care Property Fund shares actually. If you didn't have that many shares, you got the cash equivalent value instead. But in that whole transaction from the get-go, no cash is exchanged. So you can issue shares with paper transaction.
So to recap, David, three other companies that are hinting maybe or giving indications that they may be coming to the market again soon are Main Event, Innovative Energy, and General Accident.
And there's also VM Investments Limited. Stanley Motor got the shareholder approval about 2 weeks ago. I can't remember who else on the list, but were separate back in 2023, I believe. Yes, 2023 September. They got shareholder approval to issue more shares as well, or increase authorized share capital and issue shares in the future. So a lot of companies are just making these preparatory steps from early. And PBS.
And PBS too. Any indication of maybe when they may be coming to market?
So it's a dual folded thing, because the thing is, there are some companies right now where they're in a position where they do want to raise money, but at the same time, they would want to raise at a better valuation. So, for example, you have companies in the junior market right now that would want additional capital, but they would want to raise it under the $750 million threshold that has not been approved as yet by the Minister of Finance or brought into law through legislation. So I've been seeing a lot of persons in media and other places say that the threshold adjustment has been approved. It has been approved in principle, but it's not been brought into legislation, meaning into law. So until that adjustment is actually brought to Parliament, signed and made into law, companies are just holding back in a sense in the interim.
You know, that
Go ahead, Kalila.
The IPO space has been fairly quiet as well. I haven't heard anything lately. Have you? And if you have, you don't have, I know you can't tell us who, but have you heard anything at all?
There's only one company that's made actual steps towards an IPO, meaning what you tend to see before an IPO is kind of a common indicator at this point is because the JSE rules say you need to have at least 2 independent directors and it's other factors. Whereas a company used to be an associate of Proven, they appointed 3 independent directors to their board, well-seasoned individuals. And when you see that kind of event, you're like, oh, they're definitely planning to come public. Okay, you don't just add those directors by accident and have a press release. You're giving an indication ahead of time that, hey, we do plan to come to market. And you have, for example, Dollar mentioning Ultra spin-off, on the junior market, which is a preferred route. We are hearing, can't forget Jamaica Teas, they want to, spin off their, well, not spin off, but, list parts of their manufacturing business on the JSE. So we do have companies on the JSE that already, have made some intentions or notices that they want to raise additional capital or, by in this case, issuing new shares for their subsidiaries or selling shares in the subsidiary as existing, or, these other companies that have made these steps to appoint these directors as a precursor step towards listing. But the truth of the matter is, while rates are coming down, it's not going to be overnight whereby, boom, everybody's going to come to market. There's still a bit of a lag in terms of when rates do come down and when they start to have a material effect in different parts of the markets, because in the money markets, DOJ CDs, repos now, GOJ treasury bills, you're seeing the immediate effect of rate cuts. But those rate cuts passing through different parts of the system, financial sector, even to the banks, is a lot slower. So you're still going to see persons kind of try to capitalize on these low rates. Some persons are building up liquidity as well. So IPO space might be a little dry going into the end of the year, especially considering that persons are, just gauging the economic outlook right now, because but like I mentioned that today, that we're expected to see a decline in Q3, or I should say the economic output for the most recent quarter, September, because of Hurricane Beryl. So get into context.
Just prepare your money for next year, yeah? Everybody who's asking, just 2024 is not going to happen, at least not much, especially for the rest of the year. But prepare for 2025. I see a couple
Here's a
of
joke,
people.
Kalila.
Huh?
Here's a joke. Rum shirt, cement shirt, ammunition shirt, IPO shirt.
I see a couple of people are bright sparks in the comments. They have Shell saying PBS was to have a bond in September, but they've been suspended from July. their audit books won't be ready till November based on their latest release. And then Phil saying, remember also MFS got permission for a rights issue.
And so did Eddie Focal.
And then Philip also mentioning iCreate slash Kintyre Holdings, the rebranded company.
The only commentary Kinta is that they didn't raise capital. It's more so that they were doing acquisitions through the issuance of new shares. So that's an example of some similar to setting a transaction through the issuance of new shares. But other companies are likely going to more likely raise or issue those shares to the market to raise cash in hand. So that's just my perspective.
So Philip dropping all the knowledge today. Philip says Dollar is also actively raising a marketable bond. And then Learn Grow Invest has a scoop saying they expect at least one IPO and 2 APOs in short order.
Well,
So,
those are not hidden, to be honest. Those are not hidden. Those are actually known. And IPO, but APOs at least.
2025, yeah. 2025. APOs has not been a hot market for APOs, and even the IPO market, the ones that have come to market have been pretty lukewarm in the performance. So let's see what 2025 has in store.
Well, depends on how you define lukewarm, but you do have a point. The IPOs that have come in the last 2 years have not done the traditional dash and jump or this massive 200% increase that persons are used to. Even RPL went up 100% within call it 2 months of its listing. We saw Dollar and everybody doing their jump up and down in 2022, 23, only one IPO, 2 IPOs this year, and persons are just, I guess, kind of waiting and praying for those days to return, where you can throw 10 grand into IPO, probably using 6 accounts, 7 accounts, to turn 70 grand into 210 grand in less than a month.
All I want is to have the amount of shares in Trans Jamaican Highway that Andrew Holness have.
Why?
That's all I want for Christmas. Anybody want to gift me that? I will be a happy woman. And they still haven't started charging on the Mandeville leg of the toll. Every time I pass it, I'm wondering, okay, is this it? Do we have to start paying now? And it's still free so far.
Well,
enjoying the free ride, but I do want my dividends. So there's that.
Well, TGH has already gotten the approval, but I guess it's just based on the political expediency of the current day and time, because we heard that the toll should have been charged starting from August, and we're in October now. So, as I said, let's just see and wait for the next set of elections.
Mm-hmm. Andrew has 5 million TJH shares. I need to take on my calendar and figure out how much dividends that, because enough money that
Kalila, a TJH director, bought 100 million shares a couple of weeks ago. That's $300 million. 100 million plus.
100 million?
Yes, that was in September.
Wow.
That was just one director. That's 325 million plus, Kalila.
I need to change my ambitions. So
your ambition, but your ambition will probably mean direction
I was having
career.
ambitions for 5 million. I need to raise my ambitions. Clearly, 100 million is where it's at. Want to escape on the toll too.
You mean earn from it as well?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
And the irony of it is that TJH goes to 2036, 2035, I believe. About 12 years from now, but it's not likely you're going to see a change in their operations, because it's more likely you're going to see an extension of that concession, just because it wouldn't be in the government's interest to try and operate and set up the operations to manage the highway themselves. It's actually more convenient for them to allow a private operator to manage the affairs of the highway and just, collect a concession fee as agreed.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see. I'll keep you updated because I drive it at least twice a week. I'll let you all know when you can expect that increased revenue for TJH and higher dividend payments. Thank you so much for joining us again, David. Always appreciate you.
You're welcome, Kalila. Always glad to help.